the headliners, the newsmakers, the political scene, and government issues. These should be our concern, and we're taking you at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join me at the forefront as we zero in a big event that's happening this weekend. Both the PMA and UP, or the University of the Philippines, are conducting their entrance exams this Saturday and Sunday. The University of the Philippines College Admission Test, or UPCAT, is one, if not the most competitive college entrance examination in the country. Aspirants will be trooping to the various UP testing centers nationwide to take the UPCAT and get the opportunity to avail themselves of a UP education. Excellence and equity are never compromised whenever UP accepts new students. Apart from passing the UPCAT, the university also takes into account the applicant's high school performance and putting every UPCAT taker on a level playing field. Today, we look into the UPCAT and see why many consider it a game changer in college education. We have with us today Danilo Arao, professor at the Department of Journalism, College of Mass Communication. Good morning, Danilo Arao, Professor Danny.
Yes, good morning, Attorney Karen, and thank you for this invitation. Nice to be here.
Welcome at the forefront. So, Professor Danny, let's start with the UPCAT. This is the second time since the pandemic, so only the second time since the pandemic that the UPCAT will be held in person. So can you tell us how the admissions process was during the pandemic?
During the pandemic, obviously we were not able to conduct the examination due to prohibitions against mass gatherings and all that, and people had to stay at home for the most part of their lives. So the assessment was mainly based on high school records and the content of the grades that they had during the K-12 program. So there were certain methodologies done to ensure that there is equity in admission. Now, just to clarify, Attorney Karen, I am not in a position to talk about the details because as a member of the University Council, I'm not really allowed to talk about specific information as to what process went through there. But of course, obviously, it's a matter of public information that the exams became, non-existent during the time of the pandemic. That much we know.
Okay. And when we're conducting the UPCAT now, post-pandemic, did we go back to the old system, or have there been any changes in the way we have the UPCAT?
In terms of content, obviously it evolves through the years, but the conduct of, or the manner of conducting the exam has remained the same. So the number of hours spent by the student would be largely the same, as well as the kind of examination that was provided. So there's still the usual reading comprehension, mathematics, proficiency and language, and all that.
What, in terms of the grade that is required in order to enter into UP, the UPCAT is what, 60% or 40% of the total average that's required? Can you give us an idea what the breakdown is in terms of the actual UPCAT test results and the grade of the student or the applicant in high school?
Now, Now, unlike others, I'm not sure if this is also applied in other universities, but Attorney Karen, in the case of UP, there are certain methodologies that are employed, details of which we cannot discuss, but rest assured that the weight of the examination is one indicator along with high school grades, and this is something that's very significant, the location of the school and the house where the student comes from. We need to provide equity so that we become more inclusive. In other words, let's be candid here. We don't want a situation where only the privileged would be able to enter the university. So there are certain equations that are used that are the basis for admission. So let's be clear that for a student, let's say, of an English-speaking science high school based in Manila, would tend to have more advantage because of the quality of education that he or she has. So it has to. So for someone who's promising, who has a bright future, but would come from the provinces that would tend not to use English, for example, as medium of instruction, UP needs to make sure that we're able to provide the same opportunity to this person. So the equation and the basis, the methodology for computing the what we call the UPG or the University Predicted Grade would tend to vary based on the circumstances of the student. So we need to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible.
Okay, now that we were talking about inclusiveness, there's a perception that the University of the Philippines has become a school for the elite because we've seen in the past there are several students who come from wealthy families or who are children of government officials or even successful alumni who also come from wealthy backgrounds or prominent backgrounds. So as you mentioned, there are factors that are taken into consideration in order to make the process or the admissions process very inclusive. So how do you then try to address that perception that it's really a school for the elite?
Actually, we don't deny it. And as an individual faculty member, I share the frustration and disappointment. That's why, more than a decade ago, I was part of the system committee to review the admissions process in the university. We tried to address that. Even the medium of instruction would have to be taken into account in admission of the person. So we try our best to not really, it's not a matter of changing the perception, but rather to provide empirical basis for the inclusivity that we so claim to provide for those who are, for the more than 100,000 examinees of UP. Attorney Karen, you are correct in that particular impression. And if you go around the campus, and I'm sure you've done that as a former alumni and as an alumnus and as a former lecturer at the UP College of Law, we may have observed the fact that there are, too few parking spaces during the weekdays and during class hours. It's mainly because of what you correctly mentioned. We don't want UP to be reduced into a school for the elite, where only the richest but the brightest would come in. We want also the poor but deserving to also get their fair share of getting into UP.
But what about those who, let's say, don't get admitted just because they also come from a wealthy family? So for example, if their grades are high in high school and they did well in the entrance exam, is the university also worried that there might be claims that there's a discrimination against those who come from a certain demographic? In this case would be the upper demographic of income or I guess like the AB crowd.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good question. We don't discriminate against the rich. When we say equal opportunities for all, we mean the fact that only the best and brightest would come in, regardless of the social class that you belong to, even if there is some consideration. For example, if you come from an indigenous tribe, our methodology should be able to capture the fact that between the best and the brightest, that we can only get the best and the brightest among different social classes, even if we would tend to give more weight to those who belong to certain marginalized sectors. I'm sure those who come from the elite would be able to understand that kind of quote-unquote bias for the poor but underrepresented, for the simple reason that if you come from an elite school and if you belong to a wealthy family, there are a lot of options for you beyond UP. But if you are not part of the elite, sometimes a public school system would be your best resort, to which we can classify the University of the Philippines.
Professor Danny, in terms of data, does UP know how much of its student population come from wealthy families, and then how many are from indigenous groups, for example?
Okay, I don't have the specific percentages right now at my fingertips, but I can tell you that those who come from the poor are relatively marginalized not only in terms of the number, but also in terms of the admissions that would come in. One indication that the rich would tend to have a more substantial footing in the university would be the no-show rate. Usually, every year, it would tend to be around 30% of total number of students who were admitted into UP. What do we mean by no-show? Just to explain briefly, they actually pass the UPCAT, but they do not. But they decide not to pursue their education at UP and they go somewhere else at our neighbor along Katipunan, for example. So that would be one indication in terms of the footing that the relatively privileged would have in the university.
Okay, and then, but is there also a quota for accepting indigenous groups? Like there are some universities in the US, for example, that would have a reserved quota for minority races. And in the UP system, is there like a reserved quota where you try to prioritize a certain number that would be allotted for indigenous peoples or perhaps other marginalized groups?
Okay, I have to admit I don't have the specific information because that would be under the Office of Admissions of UP. But Attorney Karen, from what I know, there are cases where we actually do admit and we actually do encourage the marginalized groups, including those who belong to the indigenous peoples, to enter UP. So I can only provide certain anecdotes where we have LUMAD students who are victims, for example, of red tagging and militarization, being encouraged to study in UP, and they actually passed the UPCAT because they are actually very, very bright. It's not because they are given special consideration. So, Attorney Karen, let me be clear here. When we try to, the model that's adopted by the US, it's not as if we are blindly following it, but we all know the imperfections that go with DEI classifications in the US. In the university, we try our best to ensure that only the best and the brightest would come in. So that's why examinations through the UPCAT would become a major indicator. But Attorney Karen, let me be also clear that for specific degree programs that would require innate talent, the UPCAT would not play a major role, but rather you should be able to prove that you belong to UP through your talent. For example, your talent when it comes to music, when it comes to artistry like fine arts. So those are some indicators of your being able to study in UP. So we can go beyond the examination and just evaluate based on talent. Actually, Attorney Karen, even in the course that I teach, journalism, our discipline would require students to be able to have the ability to write. So while the UPCAT would be able to assess your intelligence, when you go into the third year and fourth year of your degree program, you should be able to pass certain examinations. You should be able to ensure that you're able to prove that you belong to UP or in the journalism program of UP by being able to prove that you're able to write. So what am I trying to stress here? Attorney Karen, it's just that passing UPCAT is one thing, but staying in the university to prove that you belong here is also another. And the requirements would tend to vary across different colleges and units. It depends on the discipline that you plan to pursue.
Professor Danny, is there a way to game the system of the admissions process in UP? For example, like what you said, there are certain colleges that really don't emphasize grades because it's talent that's required, or for example, the ability to write very well. But there are some students, I mean, I was a student before, and
Yes.
I would always hear that they would say, well, you know, you apply for a course that's not a quota course, a course that does not require a very high math grade, and then you just switch to another course after your first year. So is there a way to game the system? But before you answer that question, we'll have to go on a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. And we still have with us Professor Danilo Arao of the UP Law, I was going to say UP Law, University of the Philippines. Professor Danny, before the break, I was asking you, is there a way to game the UP admission system? So for example, if you want to get in, you avoid quota courses, or you try to avoid those that would require a high grade for math or other things that you know you're weak on, and then you shift to a different course.
Yeah. Attorney Karen, no system is ever perfect, and we do expect certain individuals, smart enough to sort of, to use your term, to game the system. But there are efforts to ensure, again, that if ever the system is gamed, it would still be to the advantage and not to the detriment of all parties concerned. So, for example, in your discussion about mathematics being, avoided by students, no, I don't know of any course in UP that would totally abolish math altogether, or that would deprive students of some knowledge on basic mathematics or even advanced mathematics at the college level. So it will still happen. There are certain perceptions, I agree, that certain disciplines would be the entry point of students, and then they would just opt to transfer elsewhere. There are stories like that. And just like you, I'm also an alumnus of UP, and I've heard of such, remarks coming from students on how to game the system. But rest assured that whatever they perceive to be, ways to game the system, to avoid, to get, the easy courses, so to speak, no course is ever easy. It only becomes easy because the student would like it, would love pursuing the course, and to the point that they would find learning an enjoyable experience. So we do allow students, just like other universities, we allow students to shift from one course to another. There's no limit as to how many courses they can try to pursue, so that they can find the one that they like the most, or the one that they are most passionate about. So it's not really about gaming the system, but allowing the students to find their passion, so to speak.
Okay. Professor Danny, what about the tuition fees? So University of the Philippines is known to be one of the cheapest universities because it's subsidized by the government. Is it the same for all students? So for example, if you're a wealthy student, then are you also enjoying the same tuition fee as the other students? Because people will say, oh, that's unfair. They can afford, to pay high tuition, but the others, of course, they really deserve to be subsidized. So how is the tuition fee system in UP?
Okay, in terms of the baccalaureate program, if it's your first degree, be a bachelor's program, the tuition is free because that's part of the free tuition law implemented by the government. So it includes all higher education universities that are state-owned, and UP would be one of them. So it's free. Now, is it unfair to the rich? Actually, no. because in other countries, there are also free tuition laws that are implemented. I got my doctorate from Germany, for example, and the tuition there is free even at the graduate level, even at the master's and doctoral level. So that's why as a foreigner in Germany, I'm also able to avail of free tuition. Germany didn't really care as to whether I'm rich or poor. As long as you're a human being, you are allowed to avail of free tuition. So we try to implement that kind of model here in the University of the Philippines for the simple reason that if you deserve to be in UP, regardless of your social status, you deserve what the poor people are also getting, even if you are rich. It's not unfair because there are opportunities in which rich people would be able to donate to the university legally, of course, not to the point of bribery. There are ways to do that. And if they volunteer to pay for the full cost of tuition, if ever they think that it's too unfair for them, then I think they have the option to do so. And from what I know, there are certain rich individuals who have opted to pay the full cost of tuition. There are mechanisms for that, Attorney Karen.
Okay. And are foreign students allowed to apply to UP?
Yes, they are. However, in terms of the free tuition that we're talking about here, there is a need to fact check this particular point. From what I know, only the Filipinos would be able to avail of free tuition. But I'm not so sure about that particular fact, Attorney Karen. But foreigners may be allowed to enter UP. I'm just not sure of the kind of tuition that they have to pay for.
Okay. What about scholarships? We've heard of the term oblation scholar. What type of,
Yes.
what does that mean?
Okay, actually, the Oblation Scholar program has been there since time immemorial. It simply means that if you're able to get a high grade in the UPCAT, you'll be able to get a certain kind of scholarship. But of course, it doesn't apply to all of those who are able to get the highest grades because the slots are quite limited, and that's why we've been trying to ask the government to provide more subsidy to UP, not because we think we're privileged, but because it's under the law. We are a national university, and we should be able to provide the best services and the best accommodation to our students. So scholarship programs, if we want to talk about it in general, there are certain scholarship programs that are available to specific disciplines, whether in the sciences, in the humanities, in the social sciences, and all that. Just like other universities, we have a specific office that focuses mainly on scholarship programs. So we try our best to provide scholarship to those who are in need of it. Yeah.
Okay, so there's scholarship, as you said, Oblation Scholar is based on the grade that you get from the UPCAT. But others, do you have needs-based scholarships, meaning
Yes.
it's based on, like, if your family can't afford to pay, then you can apply for that as well?
That's correct. And there are two types of scholarship. There are scholarships that are managed directly by the university, and there are also private scholarships. We allow students to avail of whatever scholarship that they can find. Actually, there are students that I know of who don't really apply for scholarship in the university itself, but rather in their local government. So they tend to complement, so the local government would tend to complement the needs, the financial needs of the student separate from the university. So that is also a possibility, Attorney Karen. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I thought you said something. But at any rate, there are needs-based scholarship, and there are also scholarship, for lack of a better term, they are mainly for the grades that you earn. In other words, you need to maintain a certain grade point average, and then you will be able to maintain your scholarship. But if you are not able to do so, then you'll be taken off the scholarship program. So that's also another angle that we need to look at. Needs-based programs, I would have to emphasize, usually they have certain grade requirements, and we try our best to intervene with the sponsor not to make the grade requirement too high, so that we can still be realistic about personal circumstances of students. Because as we all know, sometimes grades would not be a good indicator of scholastic standing, in the sense that it does not reflect the whole learning experience. So we need to be as compassionate and as understanding as possible, especially whenever students would incur low grades compared to the past semester or the past school year.
Okay. Professor Danny, what is the average rate of the tuition fee right now for UP?
Theoretically, it's free. So the answer there would be zero. But of course, when we talk about tuition, we should look at other expenses as well. Sometimes dorm fees would tend to be high, and the slots would be very limited. So the cost of a UP education would be would tend to vary depending on the discipline that you have. For example, when you want to talk about media studies, film would be quite expensive because of the production cost involved in producing certain documentaries. Even short documentaries would tend to be costly. So if you want to talk about journalism, which I teach, it's relatively cheap, or it's not as pricey as film, because the thesis and the production cost for a journalistic output would not be too high. I'm not so familiar with the College of Law. Maybe you would be in a better position to talk about how law students spend their money through the reproduction of various readings. I'm not sure how much it would cost, but that would be some expenses worth looking at as well.
Professor Danny, I remember when I was a student at the University of the Philippines College of Law, I had to pay tuition every semester. And some of our researchers say that the average tuition fee as of 2018 to 2019 is around 31,000 pesos for UP. So help us understand here, in what instances are students required to pay a tuition?
I'm not exactly sure where your researchers got the information, but I'm guessing that it has to do with the OVCS, Office of the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs data. It might be in relation to the average cost of staying in UP, where you try to incorporate living expenses of students, book allowances, thesis expenses for fourth-year students, and all that. But as I said a while ago, if you want to talk about tuition itself, that would be free theoretically at the baccalaureate level. Now, for the master's level and the doctoral level, the range would be from what I know, it's around 600 pesos per unit at the graduate level if you're taking master's and doctoral already. As I said a while ago, it's not covered by the free tuition law because the free tuition law only applies to the baccalaureate level.
Okay, so that explains why I had to pay tuition for law school as well, right? Because it's not covered by the free tuition law.
The free tuition law, I don't know when you took your studies at the College of Law, but the free tuition law only happened during the time of Duterte. From what I know, the free tuition law covers zero tuition at the baccalaureate level. In the case of the College of Law, technically it's a second degree program. So again, I'm sorry if I'm unprepared to talk about the College of Law program, but I'm not sure if it's covered by the free tuition law at the moment. But assuming, Attorney Karen, that you entered the College of Law before the time of Duterte, so we had to pay for tuition at that particular time, and naturally, you would also have to pay as well at that time.
Yeah, I can guarantee to you, I took law school before the term of President Duterte.
Yes, yes.
Let's
Yeah,
talk
because
about.
it's a matter of public, sorry.
Yes, yes. And let's talk about some fun facts about the UP entrance exam, the UPCAT. What are your tips to the students? So what can they expect? This exam takes how long? And are you allowed to go to the restroom while you're taking the exam? Are you allowed to eat? Can you bring food?
Okay, if you want to follow the policies closely, uh, there are proctors in the examination room. Usually, the exam would take half a day, so you have time to relax. It's not as if you'll be staying there in the examination room forever. Are there snack breaks? Yes, I think so. If we follow the policies strictly. But there are certain time limits for every subject area. For example, mathematics would only take, you should be able to finish the exam within a certain time frame. And then after that, you go to language proficiency, reading comprehension, logical reasoning, and all that. So there are certain subject areas that would have specific time limits. Now, why do I say that it's not that sometimes why do I make a qualifier if things are followed strictly? I do remember during my time in the 1980s when I took the UPCAT, the proctor was a little bit liberal and they allowed us to finish the exam by the time that the actual examination period would finish. In other words, the subject areas, it's up to you as to how long it would take you for as long as you finish at the specific time. For example, in my case, I think I took it in the morning and then by 12 noon, I should be able to finish. So I'm able to pass my examination papers by 12 noon, actually a few minutes before 12 noon, and then that's it. Sometimes it can happen. It depends on the professor that would administer the exam. But the students should be prepared to observe the proper time limit. They should bring, yes, they should be able to bring their snacks, drink lots of water, relax, because this examination, it's not as if you will be, you know, tortured into getting the right answers. So you have to make sure that you are able to be properly hydrated and properly fed so that you would be in a better position to think about the right answers. And as they say, if it's a multiple choice exam, you should be whatever comes to mind first, that should be your right answer if you're sure that that's the right answer. So don't overthink. Okay, just simply think critically.
Okay, that's a good tip for those taking the UPCAT this weekend. And as you said, also,
Yeah.
you can take bathroom breaks as long as you're able to finish
Yes.
the exam within the required time. For those who plan to take the UPCAT in next year or future years, there are UP review centers, not necessarily provided by UP, but they aim to provide reviews specifically to pass the UPCAT. Do you think these are effective for students who aspire to go to UP?
Okay, it's good that you mentioned that because just for the record, the university does not sanction any review center and we don't have specific programs to, you know, conduct reviews officially for those who would want to take the UPCAT. So it's good that you mentioned that these are private sector initiatives. Are they useful? Well, if you have enough money, if you think that you can if you think that you cannot pass without such review centers, then do so. But I do know of the fact that there are students who don't go to review centers, but you know they actually do well in the UPCAT. I'm not sure during your time, Attorney Karen, if you've had review centers then, but in the 1980s when I took the UPCAT, and that's also true with many of my friends, there were no review centers then, and we had to depend on stock knowledge. We had to review based on what we know at the high school level, and yeah, we're able to pass the UPCAT still. So it's not necessary, but if you think it's something that you should go through, then by all means, you should. However, I should also mention, Attorney Karen, that aside from the review centers, there are books that are available that you can review. I'm not endorsing anything, but that can also be helpful if the students think that what they took up under the K-12 program would not be enough. So it's optional. In other words, that's my short answer.
Yes, and as you said, it doesn't really give a specific advantage because it's not UP sanctioned. So basically, it's really up to you to determine, does this program or review program fit me, and do I need it? But as you said, it doesn't really like right away give you a specific advantage.
That's correct. For the simple reason that the questions change through the years,
Ano?
and it's not
Ano
as
yung
if what was asked
advice niya?
before will be asked again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Professor Danny, what would be your advice to students who will take the UPCAT this weekend?
Well, just simply relax and don't be too pressured in terms of over-analyzing and overthinking the answers. It's okay to be a little bit nervous. You may be pressured into, by certain entities, especially your parents. And I hope the parents don't pressure their children too much. So this particular advice has more to do not with the examinees, but, with the loved ones of the examinees. They should help them relax. They should help them, not be too pressured by the moment. And, just enjoy, that I know that for a nerd like me, enjoying the examination would be a little bit too unwieldy, and it's much easier said than done. But they should enjoy the moment, the fact that they stepped on campus and took the examination. If they pass, then good. If they don't, it's not the end of the world for them. If they think that UP is their dream school, there are, as early as now, I should mention that there are other alternative ways to get admitted into UP by shifting or transferring from an outside university to the Diliman campus or whatever campus that you choose. But at any rate, in taking the examination today and tomorrow, just try their best to remember what they learned under the K-12 program. Read carefully, especially the part about reading comprehension. Read carefully the questions and the instructions, and then relax. Make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure you are well fed. Arrive early at the examination venue, by the way, so that you don't get additional pressure, especially if you're coming in late. So try your best and anticipate traffic, by the way, on campus, because it would be very, very, there would be many, many people on campus right now, or at the testing center, wherever they may be. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Danny. Really great insights into UPCAT, but also great advice to all those who are taking the UPCAT this weekend. Thank you so much for joining us today, Professor Danny Arao.
Yeah. Thank you, Atty. Karen.
At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. And now to tell us more about how she passed the UPCAT with flying colors, we have with us Angela Nang, former UP student batch 2021. Welcome, Angela, to the Forefront, at the Forefront.
Hello.
Yeah. So tell us about your experience. Did you find the UPCAT a difficult exam?
At the time, it definitely felt like it was because, syempre, all the pressure was there, all your nerves. But looking back, I think it's not as difficult as I remember because it's really like stock knowledge of what you learned in elementary and high school. If you really listen to your teachers.
If you really listen.
Yes.
So by stock knowledge, what do you mean? Like math? Is there science as well?
Yes, so all the general subjects, but it's like with math, it's all the equations that you learn. So you really just have to apply everything you've learned in the past years.
I'm trying to remember the UPCAT because I took mine decades ago. But was there also calculus? Do you remember? I remember definitely there was algebra.
Yeah.
But calculus, I think there was also geometry.
There was geometry. Calculus, I don't really remember. Also, I took it 8 years ago. So but yeah, geometry, algebra, and then of course there's the usual English, Filipino subjects.
Yeah, so there's Filipino, right? Because I
Yes.
remember the Tagalog part was also difficult compared to the other entrance exams. I think in
Yeah.
my opinion.
I think so too.
But how did you prepare for the UPCAT?
I did self-review actually. I borrowed a friend's. She took the UPCAT earlier, and I borrowed her exam reviewer.
So there are reviewers that you can get.
Yes.
Is it like when you saw those reviewers, was it made by other people or was it like something that you can buy off the shelf?
You could buy it. Other people also like rent it out. People do that, but well, she was my friend, so she just lent it to me.
But it's very specific. Like the reviewer you used, does it say reviewer for the UPCAT?
Actually, it does. They're like different. I don't know, depends on the review center as well.
Okay, so it was from a review center.
Yes.
Okay, so I think there's at least for some people who feel like they're not as prepared or that their stock knowledge is not sufficient, you can really benefit from review centers by having those reviewers and then being able to read and practice and then refresh your knowledge, right?
Definitely.
And in your experience, in terms of preparing the day before or the week before, is there like a specific sleeping routine that you followed or what you ate, like other considerations apart from studying?
I tried to sleep,
Tried.
but syempre the nerves are there, so I really couldn't sleep that night. I probably had like 2 hours at most.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then my parents at the time just forced me to have breakfast, even if I really couldn't digest anything. But we decided to go there really early because obviously traffic. But other than that, I didn't really have a routine. I specifically remember my mom giving me a rosary though to keep during the exam.
Did you get to eat during the exam? I mean,
Yeah.
I can't even remember how long the break is. There's a lunch break.
There, you can bring snacks. I don't remember how long also, but less than an hour, if I'm not mistaken, like a few minutes lang talaga. And then
did you do like bathroom breaks during the exam?
You could naman. You just
Yeah.
have to ask permission.
Okay, because I remember for me in the bar exam, of course that's another concern for
Yeah.
people that if you go to the bathroom, you might not finish on time. So
True.
there are others who talk about wearing adult diapers or just to avoid going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But in your case, no issues with that.
No, yeah, if I probably held it in.
And then from the time that you take the exam, how long was it until you found out about the results?
If I remember, probably like a few months or maybe just, a few months after. UPCAT was the first to release that year. So when I found out, I didn't think about anything else now.
So meaning, and then the other schools, you were like, okay, I'm for sure I'm gonna go to UP.
Yeah, my parents are also from UP, so it
Okay.
was natural.
Yeah, I can understand that. Same with me. So, what would be your advice for students who are taking the UPCAT this weekend?
Ooh, I'd say to take a breath because your nerves really can get to you. But when you're there, you really gotta focus and be there early because traffic po talaga. And just to repeat, Sir Arao a while ago, he also said to just be critical of what you're going to answer.
Yeah, so we really read the instructions carefully and then be present at the moment. But I think the consistent advice that you and Professor Danny gave is really to be early
Yeah.
and prepare for the traffic. Very good advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Angela.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back to At the Forefront. The UPCAT may not be UP's lone determinant to accepting new students for an incoming academic year. But hurdling it is the first step to a lower tuition expense or even a free college education. But more than the expense, the UP brand of tertiary education is the main reason why many qualified high school students are scrambling to take a shot at UPCAT. Education is a great equalizer, and getting past the UPCAT will surely push aspirants forefront. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations, no debates. This is Atty. Karen Jimeno, thanking you for spending your hour with us. Have a great weekend. And for all those UPCAT examinees and PMA examinees, best of luck.